Welcome to another episode of Board Game Coffee Espresso.
Today we're going to teach you all about deck building games.
And there are so many deck building games out there. Like there's Marvel Legendary, there's Clank, there's Dominion, there's Star Realms. There's just so many. So many. We could use a video just to list them all. There's that many.
And I'm glad there's that many because it's one of my favorite categories of games.
Mine too.
Deck builder games can be both cooperative and competitive.
Typically when you're playing a deck building game, each player starts with the same deck of cards. And it's a small deck, usually like 10 or 12 cards. And then players will draw like 5 or 6. Again, there's a lot of little variations because there's so many deck building games out there, but this will give you a rough idea of the general rules used across most, if not all of them. So now that you've drawn like 5 or 6 cards, your cards will have different types of currencies. So you'll play some that allow you to buy more cards, which is a very common thing that you do in all deck building games, where you use certain cards that give you some sort of currency that allow you to buy other cards that you put in your discard pile, which eventually will get cycled through your deck, because when your deck runs out, you shuffle it up with your discard pile, and now those cards have made it into your hand. Other currencies that you'll find on those cards will be things that'll let you will let you accomplish your goal. So either move around the board or attack the enemy. There's a lot of different things. It really depends on which game you're playing. That's the general basis, is you draw cards, you play those cards to buy cards, and then those cards that you're buying are usually better versions of the cards you already have. And then you use the abilities on the cards you bought to take different actions, better actions, as the game progresses.
So your deck is actually getting better as you buy more cards for it, and you're starting to get more complementary cards.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you have to watch out where you don't want to just buy anything. You want to buy cards that complement other cards that you've already bought. But keep in mind, later the game gets, the bigger your deck is getting, so the less opportunity you're going to get to draw those cards. And typically, the better cards cost more. So when in doubt, get the more expensive one. It's not necessarily a winning strategy, but it's fun. This lesson also covers other game types like bag building or pool building, which is basically the same as deck building, but you're using either like tokens that you're pulling out of bag or dice. It pretty much works the same. You would have tokens that you play that get you better tokens that you put in your bag. It's all the same, but it's great.
These games are great for people who like to collect things and customize their experience.
And there's tons of variety. Not in just like there's so many different games, which there is. There's also a lot of variety in each time you sit down to play a single game.
Yeah.
Because the cards you buy change how your decks work. The cards your opponents buy changes what you're up against. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool. And we mentioned how there's cooperative and competitive games in this genre, and they're all awesome. Mm-hmm. They're all awesome. Like a good competitive one that we've played is Star Realms. That's a great competitive one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
A great cooperative one, Harry Potter.
Yes.
The Harry Potter
Hogwarts Battle.
That's also a very good one.
Yeah.
And it's very thematic too. And the thing, these games can be very thematic. They're just so good. I could talk about deck building games
all day long.
All day.
Love them.
Yeah. If you haven't tried deck building games, you definitely to give them a go. So what's your favorite deck building game, if you had to pick one?
My favorite deck building game, I think if I had to pick one, would be Clank in Space. I think it's such a great game, especially for new people who are coming into board gaming and they've never played a deck builder before, because it's really easy to learn, easy to start playing, but it can have really intense strategy as well. So I like it. The cards are fun. There's a lot of spoofs in it. You're building your deck, but then you're also dungeon crawling as well. And you're racing against each other.
And that's Clank in Space is interesting because it's not just a deck builder, it's also like a move around the board collecting type of thing or game. So it's not, because not all deck builders have a board you get to move around.
True.
Because one of my favorites is Marvel Legendary. Marvel Legendary is awesome.
Yes.
And when we first started dating, we used to play Marvel Legendary all the time.
That was my first deck builder, which got me into deck building games.
Yeah, Marvel Legendary is great. Different, there's no people moving around the board, but there are cards that move along the board. They can't, like in stages, and they're villains, and you have to like collect cards to defeat the cards on the table. And thing is, what's interesting about Marvel Legendary is that it's competitive, cooperative, because you have to work together to defeat the baddie. But at the end, whoever's got the most points based on what baddies they've destroyed is the better winner. Like, we both win, but then there's somebody that's the better winner. I still count that game as more of a cooperative than a competitive.
Agreed.
It's a cooperative with a little I did better than you at the end type of game. But both those games are excellent. And if you haven't tried a deck building game before, you need to do yourself a favor and try one out. Deck building games are awesome. One of our favorite genres, hands down. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Board Game Coffee Espresso. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.